Hello, and welcome to the Second Chapter Variety Show, where we mix cosmic magic with a whole lot of business mastery. I'm your host, Hunter Louder, your friendly guide to business astrology, here to help you navigate your career's second act with the wisdom of the stars and innovative business strategies. Whether you're new to astrology or have been stargazing since day one, this podcast is your go-to for discovering who you truly are and aligning your business with your unique astrological blueprint. We're going to get real about what actions to take to build a perfect fit business. Each week, you can expect a mix of cosmic insights, practical business tips, and lots of laughter. Whether I'm chatting with guests who've embraced their own second chapters or diving into astro business wisdom, there's always something you can take away and apply to your own business. Welcome to the Second Chapter Society. Today, we're diving into the transformative journey of Kristen, a Reiki master teacher and founder of Palo Alto Reiki. Kristen left a 2-decade career in corporate marketing to embrace energy healing, and she's now helping women reconnect with themselves through Reiki. So if you're feeling disconnected or out of balance in your career or life, Kristen's story will inspire you to reconnect with your own inner wisdom. And by listening today, you'll discover how Kristen transformed her life and business by turning to energy healing and how you can start doing the same. And stick around to the end because I will share a simple but powerful tip to help you begin reconnecting with your own intuition. So let's get started. Kristen!
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Absolutely. So I was actually thinking about our chat today, and I was like, I don't know if we're actually going to follow any kind of script, because every time I think you and I get together, we talk for like 15 minutes, and then we go round and round in circles, and we end up on 7 topics later. So I think before I started recording, that's what we were doing. Like, oh, this, oh, that, oh my gosh. So I have known you for, I think, 2 years now. I got connected with you through a mutual friend when I was about to have surgery, I think in 2020 it was. And I was really trying, it was my first like major surgery. And I was like, I really just want like the mindset and the energy to be able to heal through it and like kind of let go of some of the fear of like not having control and being put under anesthesia. And so we had a wonderful session, and my recovery from that surgery was just amazing. And then even after that, the other thing I remember working with you on is that I get these like psychosomatic symptoms sometimes where I'm sure my body's trying to tell me something, but since I'm a little newer to that world, I'm still trying to interpret what my body's telling me. So I had like this chronic cough for like, I don't know, months. And I finally was like, you know what? I'm gonna call Kristen and see if she can help me with this. And so we did a whole like throat chakra clearing and whatever else was coming up like throughout my body. And literally like a day and a half later, this just dry, persistent cough that I had had for months was like gone.
Yeah.
So
I remember
great.
that.
Ta-da.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had some great experiences, working together. And then we're also part of a mastermind group that meets once a month with a bunch of people that are in like spiritual entrepreneurship to really talk about life, the modern world, how to be a business owner, how to incorporate these ancient tools that we all use into kind of this modern world that we live in. So I think you're similar to me in the sense of, I'm blending astrology with business. You have like kind of the ancient and the modern.
Yep.
And you've got this really amazing past corporate career that we'll talk about. And then you did, I would say, a complete 180 and went very much into like, the spiritual world. And so I think a lot of my listeners are exactly you. And I think I've even interviewed you in the past as like, my ideal client, somebody who is savvy, intelligent, has achieved a lot, like knows what she wants, driven, is in kind of the real world of business. And then all of a sudden something happens, right? And then you move on to the new part of your life. So before we dive into that, I would love to do like a little mini reading so people kind of get to know you a little bit better, of looking at your sun, your moon, and your rising sign. So Kristen, you have an Aries sun, so fire sign, which I love fire signs, but typically my husband's a fire sign, my son's a fire sign. Like I typically get along really well with fire signs. So hopefully you love me as much as I love you.
Of course.
Absolutely. So as an Aries sun, like you're just like passion and action and bravery like personified. So you've got drive in spades, and you have like the energy just to take the initiative. It's like when you have an idea, you have that energy to make it a reality. So you're not just maybe some water signs like Pisces and Cancer and stuff like that might be like thinkers and dreamers, and they all have all these ideas, and they may have to tap into any fire or any resources they have to like take action. But fire signs are about taking the action, right? So it's like you might have the idea and then you're like, boom, I'm already off executing it. And then to add double fire, you've got a Leo moon. So your moon is, how you are nurtured, how are emotionally. And so Leo is just that fire sign, but it's so creative, such leadership, huge amount of charisma. So Leos are just like people want to talk to them, they want to be around them, So your energy even extends to like your emotions. So with your clients, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with your clients, you have this very like passionate, fiery,
Yeah.
emotional nature where you really want the best for them and they're just really attracted to that in you. And I think you've even said some of your Reiki sessions almost end up being like therapy to a certain extent, where it's like, oh my gosh, we did Reiki, of course, but then we also talked about this great thing. And I had this, your client had a moment of clarity and they were able to clear something. So I really think that fire that you have in your moon allows you to do that as well. And then to bring in a fun little transformative side to your personality or Scorpio rising. So Scorpio has that depth, that intuition, and of course that transformational ability. So it's like action in the sun, action in the moon, and then also this depth with Scorpio. So when people meet you, you really come across as this very like deep, intuitive, emotional, and also very intense person. So
Okay.
definitely I would say meeting you for the first time as a client is like not going to be a weak experience. It's going to be like, this woman's a powerhouse. Not only could she help me with Reiki, with life, with business, you also do intuitive guidance. I mean, you just have like so many different ways that you help people out. So does that all resonate with you?
Yes,
Yes.
definitely. Yes.
Awesome.
It's really interesting having your personality reflected back to you, through the stars, but it helps me so much to understand
Yeah.
who I am and how I come across.
Absolutely. And I think that rising sign is a big part of that. I talk about with my clients a lot is that you don't always see yourself as other people see you. That's what the rising sign is. It's like,
Yeah.
so you come across as this to others, but it's hard to connect with sometimes. So
Yes.
reflecting it back is then, yes, you have this transformative, this intense, this emotional nature that's very different from probably how you see yourself with all those fire sign placements, and really embracing that. And I think we'll talk about your career right now because you were a marketing expert. So, from a marketing perspective, it's like a lot of times we choose what we like, but really we're trying to attract our ideal client. So, it's like we're trying to attract what they like. And I think that's a mistake some people make sometimes when they get started in business. But I would love to hear, your second chapter story. I know a little bit about it since we know each other, but to share with the audience, really your experience and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I will say, marketing in particular, what drew me to it is I always felt there were two sides to it. There's the creative side. So my offices were always filled with writers and art directors and, producers. And, I worked at a few different ad agencies. So there was very much that creativity, creating magazine ads and talking through colors and layouts and all of that. And there was the business side, and in college, I had several professors, 2 in particular, and I actually won a writing award in college, a national writing award, and I was too nervous. I was too afraid, unsure of myself. I thought it I didn't think I was a writer even though I and so I was like, "Well, I can go into advertising and marketing. I can do the business side of it because that just felt second nature to me. I could do a schedule, a timeline, project management, like and then I can still kind of be adjacent to all of these creatives." So, initially in my career, it felt so right. It was like that was where I was supposed to be, and then always in the back of my head, though, it was like I'd sit in the creative meetings and I'd be like, "Oh, I just tell me more. I wanna hear more about the creative part." And then as my career progressed, there were roadblocks that at the time I took on as, my issues. Looking back now, yes, it was, but in a different regard than I thought. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was in the wrong place. I was not supposed to be there. So these blows to my career, I was always like, what is going on? Why is that boss terrible? Why wasn't I promoted? Why did they move me to this other group? And it was literally because I wasn't supposed to be there. So it was supposed to get so hard and so uncomfortable that I actually did something. except that I didn't. I didn't do anything because I was just like, "I will make this work." And
Well, that
so
Aries
the
sun right
universe
there, right?
oh, yeah, like, "I will make this work." The universe literally knocked me on my ass, and I had a horrific injury, broke my ankle, broke my shin, doing nothing except having a cup of coffee. I literally was walking in a mall. I mean, it's the most boring story ever, but I then had to the recovery for that particular accident was bed rest. I couldn't walk. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't so I sat on my couch and that led to self-reflection. I mean, at first it was a lot of crying and a lot of what the F is going on, but it changed everything from that point. Well, I actually 9 months later apparently still hadn't learned the lesson because I broke it a second time during my recovery. Yes, we were moving because, you should move when you're in the middle of learning to walk again and going to physical therapy 3 times a week. And we moved houses and we had even hired someone to come in and unpack. But Hunter, they weren't putting the dishes where I wanted the dishes. And so I was reaching up to a shelf and I rebroke it. Second surgery, literally back to square one. So again, in hindsight, it's like, oh, because I thought I was just gonna go right back to corporate America. I thought everything was just gonna stay the same. So, the second time around, there was depression, not diagnosed depression, but it was a darker recovery time. I definitely went deeper, and it's when I first really started thinking, what else is out there to help me get through this? Started reading some self-help books that I hadn't really done before. I joined a meditation circle right here in my neighborhood. It was a woman down the street. And so I learned to meditate. I mean, of course, I knew about meditation, but I didn't think it was for me. And I found exactly what I needed. Interestingly enough, one of the courses I signed up for was a Brené Brown facilitator course, and it was I think it was called Dare to Lead. And of course, I was like drawn to it, thinking it was still, kind of in my corporate wheelhouse. No, it was so much deeper. And you talked about what your values are and just things I had never considered in that way. So you never know where your teachers are going to come from. And, the advice I give so often is just stay curious and open minded, and you will get what you need from it. So that was almost 3 years of physical recovery. And then just with those little dips in spirituality, I just kept thinking, well, it's a hobby. It's part of my recovery. It's this, it's that. And then I ended up taking another corporate job and I lasted 3 months and it was awful. I use the term it was soul sucking. It actually hurt me on this weird I would have pits in my stomach and I would be tense all day and I just thought, well, I don't really know the place yet. I lasted 3 months and I was literally crying in a conference room. And I texted my assistant and I said, "Please bring me my sunglasses and my purse to the conference room because I can't walk out looking like this." And she brought me my stuff and I looked at her and I said, "I can't come back. Like I have to get out of here." And I gave her my badge and my laptop and I walked out the front door, sent an email to my boss when I got home and said, "I'm done. I'm not coming back." And I remember saying to my husband, because we had no that was not the plan. We had a mortgage. We just moved. Like that was not the plan. I was supposed to have my salary. And I remember not just telling my husband I quit, but I said the words before I consciously thought them and I said I quit corporate America. I was done with no plan,
Yeah, so
which
not
was
just that
really
job, just that entire vision, that entire type of lifestyle. You're like, I'm done with this. And how did you get into Reiki? Like, what I know you said you did some personal development. Was that kind of
yeah.
gradual, or did that just fall into your lap? Like, what happened there?
So strange. I'd never had Reiki before. And so it took about 5 years between me quitting to find Reiki, to actually start practicing Reiki, I was having stomach issues. Could not calm my stomach down and didn't really want to go on medicine, had tried changing my eating, all this stuff. And I just one day Googled, I was Googling, what do you do? My stomach won't stop. And a Reiki practitioner came up, like one town over. And I was like, why not? Why not? Let's go see what this is all about. And I'll never forget, Hunter. I walked into her practice studio and the session was booked for an hour, and she literally took one look at me and she said, "How much time do you have?" And I was like, "For what? Like, isn't it 1 hour?" And she's like, "Do you have more time?" And I was like,
A
"Wow."
deep clean, a deep clean.
I was like, "Sure." And it was like nothing I had ever experienced. It was an out of body. I was awake, yet I was asleep. Yet I did not know what was happening. And I was in like this, sometimes after massage, you feel drunk almost. That was how I walked out of that Reiki room and I was like, what just happened in there? Like, all I came for was a stomach ache. Needless to say, stomach ache gone, gone, never an issue again. And then things started like that. And in my Reiki days, as I was paying her and checking out, there was brochures in a little folder thing next to the register. And without even really thinking, I grabbed a folder and it said, learn Reiki for yourself. I grabbed it, put it in my purse, never thought about it again. And then the pandemic hit. And my husband was working online and my kids were working online. And I was like, what am I supposed to be doing? And so I just started signing up for stuff. So that is really literally like then being locked in my house really advanced because I was bored. And I don't know if you remember at the time, so many people were putting curriculum online. So whereas I would have had to go to another state or go to, to take all these classes, all of a sudden they were at my fingertips. And so I was like, more, 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 more. And I ended up just on that exploration, learn Reiki, click, sign up. We're 10 minutes into my first. Just as the teacher was explaining the modality, I was like, this is it. This is I'm in. And then later that week, I was digging through my purse and it was the same brochure. It was the same teacher. I didn't even know that. So I had found her 2 different ways.
Oh, wow.
So it just clicked after years, and that's what I try and explain to people. This wasn't, like, well thought out at all. There was no plan other than I knew I was done with one life, and I had no idea what that second life was until I sat in that Reiki class.
And that's a big part of the journey a lot of times for people that are going through either a burnout, midlife crisis, transition, whatever it might be, is like you do not know where you are going. And I think for people like you, like me, who are very type A driven, we're used to having a plan. We've probably had a plan since birth. And like I have no problem changing my plan. My plans can always change, but I want a plan. And I do remember going through, recovering from burnout and finding the next path. And you are often just like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going to end up. I
Yeah.
don't know. And so it's like you have to really lean into like, does this feel right? Do I feel
Yeah.
good? Am I, whatever your values are, like you mentioned. So for me, that was a huge one to realize that like fun and learning are probably 2 of my top values in life and for sure in business. So that's kind of my like radar that I use is like, am I on the right path? Am I having fun? Yes. Am I learning something? Yes. Okay, great. And then if it's hard, it's not always going to be easy, even if you're within your values. But if it's hard, it's like, I know this is right for me. But if it's hard and it's not within your values, then that's where like the struggle and like the stuckness, like you mentioned in your former career, I think really come into place.
Agree. And another layer to my journey on that was my childhood and my upbringing, where I I did not know what I liked to do. I didn't know because I was the firstborn, narcissistic parents in the 80s, and there was no room for my feelings. It was always what their needs were. And I was so out of touch with myself. And that's why I know now in hindsight, I literally had to sit on my couch and figure it out. And It was incredibly painful physically, yes, but just that that's internal struggle, and I felt like I was failing all the time. I was failing. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't productive. All of these things, even though I was. I was a mother,
Tried the
traditionally
story
raised.
of what being
Yes.
productive is, and I think especially as a woman, like, it takes on this meaning because if you're a mom and you're working and you're volunteering and okay, great. Now I deserve the right to live. I deserve the right to
Yeah.
exist. But if you're not doing one of those things, whether maybe you're not a parent or maybe you don't have a career at the point, or maybe you just have a job that's fun and you go to every day and it's exciting. Why aren't you moving up the corporate ladder? Well, not everybody wants to move up the corporate ladder. Like some people are perfectly happy with what they're happy with. And what we're really talking about is when you're miserable, when you're unhappy, that's
Yep.
when it's time to take that examination, but not because someone else said, oh, your life should be like this
Yep.
or you should look like that. And then I'm also the oldest daughter in my family. And it's that whole like concept that you represent your parents and your achievements are their achievements. And if you're not achieving, they're not achieving. If you're failing, they're failing. And that is definitely something really hard to overcome. And then you go from being this corporate type A, like sensical person to now you're like a Reiki master. Like, oh my gosh, it's
Oh,
almost, how do I even tell people that? How does it, like, I don't even want to say that out loud to people that know me because they're just going to have
correct.
so many questions and so many judgments. And I'm really kind of vulnerable right now. And I don't really want to be judged by these people who have these strong opinions about what I do. So I know a lot of people
Right.
going into the spiritual entrepreneurship deal with that because they're like, oh, I'm a scientist. How do I tell people now that I'm a hypnotherapist? Or I'm a CEO. How do I tell people now that I'm a business astrologer? So it's like
Well,
really coming to terms with your identity, I think is step number one.
yes.
And then being yourself in this world is like step number two, which I think is, I mean, transformation takes a lot of bravery because the moment you
Yes.
start, you never stop. Like the moment you open that door to like self improvement, you're not like, okay, I'm done. I solved all my problems in
Yep.
3 months. It's like, oh, well, there's another one. There's another thing I want to solve. There's another thing I'm unhappy with. There's another thing that I would love to get rid of. Yeah, I would love to.
Or what about the ones that come back
Yeah, in
around?
in a slightly different like format. You're like, oh, I thought that was gone. Dang it.
Wait a minute, that one was off the list. Oh, it's the arrogant.
Like we finished with you last year. Why are you back? And
Yeah.
then similarly, I think being an entrepreneur is also incredibly brave, being a small business owner, and then you add on to it the kind of spiritual element of it as well, where people look at
Yeah.
you and they're like, would never expect by your credentials that you're a Reiki master, and so it's
Yeah.
like being comfortable with who you are is step number one because you're going to get outside comments and
Correct.
judgments and influences and everything else. So I think that's a really important part of the journey as well.
I think you're right, and it goes hand in hand. You're exactly right. The minute you open that door to who am I? If you're in a job that you hate or you are miserable all the time, like those two things can't exist. Once you know deeply, what fills your soul, what you're connected to, it's almost like, you're the puppet and the universe is just like, how about down here? How about over here? Have you looked at this? And I will say, added, the journey is not for the faint of heart. And I think that's why for so many years I resisted it until literally, an accident took me out.
I think from the outside,
Because
you had the ideal life too. So like why even if you felt badly, you're like, why do you almost would feel bad about feeling bad? Why should I feel bad?
correct.
I've got the life that everyone wants, that I always wanted, that everyone always wanted for me. How dare I be unhappy in this,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. And so it was sort of the perfect storm of timing because it was not only my accident, but then COVID. I can't discount COVID because it was such a weird time. And I almost feel like it gave me a lot of permission that you were talking about kind of rebirthing and coming out of the pandemic because so much changed in corporate America. So much wasn't the same. And so I almost felt like there was this, it was like this little like, whoop, I can just slip through and oh no, I'm not going back to corporate America. I'm a Reiki master now. I started my own business. What? Oh yeah, that happened during COVID. So it was the timing was just meant to be, for me in that regard. But one other thing I feel called to add. I don't know if there's a listener that this is going to resonate with, but I'm really feeling called to add a big part of my journey was going no contact with my parents, both of them. So that is also not easy. And after years of being emotionally controlled by them, some may say emotionally abused, some may say emotionally manipulated, I made the choice to go no contact. And it was through the help of a therapist. I was seeing an incredible therapist who gave me permission. And I literally had to say to her, "I don't know what that looks like. What does no contact?" I literally was so in my head. I was like, "So I just don't answer the text?" So I just like it was, and she was like, "You can answer the text. You can send a text when you want to send a text, not when they are And I was like, "I, I can do that." It was so simple and so mind blowing for me to take my power back in that way. And I truly believe that played a huge part in feeling, again, that word permission is coming through, feeling permission to come out as this new version of myself, this spiritual version of myself. And I'll tell you, I cut off social media. I got off several platforms just because it was easier, because both my parents would figure out ways. Anyway, that was just easier, and I live in another state than my parents, so there's no drive-bys and drop-ins, so that is also the physical barrier. Is but when I launched my website, my mom somehow found out, and she ended up writing a comment on my website, dragging me, and she literally said, "How can you be a healer when you haven't healed your own family?" Like, on and on. So it was, again, it was like a test, and it was like, "Oh, right, this is the reason the boundary's there. Oh, right, this is." I don't owe her an explanation. So it was just like, delete, block,
Yeah.
moving forward. But, yeah, I
A
don't
big
talk
part
about
of
that part of it,
Yeah, that's a big part of the
but
journey
it's
too. I was just gonna kind of go back to what you were saying earlier about being curious. So I think there's this idea of like there are these rules that we all have to follow, and we all have to be a certain way, and we all have to behave ourselves, we all have to blah 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 blah. But it's like at a certain point, you get to this where you're like, the rules are hurting me. The rules are not made for
correct.
me. I understand why they're in place. Maybe they might work for a lot of people, but they don't work for me. And so it's that curiosity of like, is there another way of doing this? Is there some other path that I could take that's going to be better for me? And then, like you said, there are consequences. Like we all make choices, and there are consequences. And I totally understand that people are like, I want this and this at the same time. Like I want to be fulfilled in my career, and I would also like to have connection with my family. And sometimes that's not possible. And really, the only thing you can ever control, and this is what you helped me enormously with before my surgery, the only thing you ever can control is yourself and your feelings and your management of a situation. You cannot control what other people do or feel or don't feel. So really that self mastery, which is like a very, Capricorn concept of like, I'm just going to make myself the best I can be and know that by focusing on myself, I'm actually helping my family, I'm helping the
Yeah,
community, I'm helping the world at large, by having these good intentions, even though it can, have some painfulness to it.
definitely. And so that's what I feel my business essentially is. Yes, Reiki is my main modality, but what I have created here in my practice is that safe space, that sacred space for that. What are the questions? What are the hard choices? Do I have to keep living this way? And you were talking about people meeting me and they have an impact, that Scorpio rising. I can't tell you how many people walk in for a Reiki session, sit down and just start crying. And they look at me and they go, "I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know why." And I said, "Because you can. Like, you're here. That's what this space is for, That is an energetic release. Let it out." So that is where I feel my real work is. Like I said, yes, the Reiki helps facilitate that work and supports that work, but Reiki's self-healing.
Yeah,
It's
and that would be my next question for you. So for people who maybe are just getting started in like their spiritual journey, they might have heard of Reiki, maybe never have, and then you hear about energy healing. It's kind of like, what is that? So I don't know if
yeah.
you can sum it up for people that are just getting started. Like, what is Reiki and why does it help?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We live in a world where things have to be proven and they have to be tangible and you have to be able to feel them and see them to know that they're real. Energy healing isn't. It isn't that. It is a leap of faith. The training of a Reiki practitioner is to funnel the energy that's all around us. I think we can all agree there's energy in the trees and the stars and the sun. And, Miss Astrologer, you fully understand the energies there. And so a practitioner is taught how to call that in and then channel it through the hands. The recipient doesn't have to do anything. This is where I think the beauty of the modality is. If you've struggled with meditation, if you've struggled with yoga, if you've any of those modalities where you have to do something, Reiki, you literally just show up for yourself. That's it. And you receive. And so clients will, if they come in person, I also offer it on Zoom, wherever you are, you just relax comfortably. And as the energy comes through my hands directed to you, your higher self, and this is where your soul self, whatever that part of you is you can't see, maybe it's that voice in your head, maybe it's your dream self, whatever you connect with, that higher part of yourself, that's who's connecting to the Reiki. So my hands, any practitioner's hands, are following your direction. So I am not healing you. I am supplying you with the healing energy. I am offering you a space to simply be, and then we go through, and there are many techniques that practitioners also learn: sweeping of the aura, removing energy that isn't someone else's. And so, in my practice and in the practice of anyone, you start to recognize that my hands actually feel heavy or feel like I need to pull something out. And that's just through, hundreds and hundreds of clients. After the session, so again, as a recipient, all you've done is lie there comfortably, listen to music. Some people fall asleep. It's all good. After, I really, Hunter, I have considered taking before and after pictures, but I don't because of, privacy and confidentiality. But people come in with the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they're closed off and they're hunched over and they're frowning and they're so stressed. And after 1 hour, they sit up and they will just go, "I just feel better." And I'll see smiles on someone that had no smiles for the first few minutes. So it is subtle yet profound, the shift. And like I said, you can experience it any number of ways. Some people do feel physical release, even though I'm not touching them, I'm hovering. I will see people do like little jerks, like their head will jerk or and I'm like, oh, there's a release. There's something moving out of their energy. The way I would love to see energy work in the future is sort of the way mental health has gone, which 20 years ago, mental health was like, you were, considered what I was just like, no, we don't need a therapist. No, that's not what we do in this family, or, whatever people's
Don't
opinions
talk
were
about it.
on therapy.
Keep it to yourself.
Exactly. And now it's literally like offered at the high school. They have a wellness center at the high school in my town. So I foresee energy work becoming the next thing that is accepted. You go to the dentist to take care of your teeth. You go to the chiropractor to take care of your spine. You go, the I believe in medicine. I believe everything. You go to the therapist to talk mental, and you need to care for your energy.
It's a holistic thing where it's I think
Yeah.
in Western culture especially, we're very reactive. So we have
Yes.
surgery, we take medication, we break bones, like those we don't deal with the proactive side of things, like of prevention or, let me try and live this optimal life and let me age well and gracefully. And it's more like I'm in crisis. I need to go work with somebody, which I'm sure that's where you
Right.
get a lot of people is they're in crisis and they need to work with you. And I think this has been part of my journey, I'm sure it has been as yours as well, is that I even have that mindset. Like I'll go to a therapist if my marriage is struggling, or I'll go to a therapist if I'm
Right.
depressed. I'll go to Reiki if I'm not feeling well. But the moment you feel well, you stop doing all those things. You stop going to therapy, you
Correct.
stop taking your medication, you stop going to Reiki, and then you feel like crap again. And it's like this cycle. And so over, 7 years that I've been healing from my burnout, and I've done that cycle a few times myself, now I'm at the point where I'm like, oh, I think I'm good. I don't need to work with this person anymore. And I'm like, well, no, I am good. I've gotten good because I've worked with this person. And now I want to get to the next level with support. Now, obviously, I'm not in anybody's wallet. And of course, people have certain budgets and
Right.
everything else, but it's like putting your mental health, physical health, spiritual health, all those things ahead of anything else, I think is vitally important. And so
Yeah.
whether you do Reiki, like you mentioned, Reiki is self-healing. So you can also go learn how to do Reiki on yourself
Yeah.
if you can't afford to see
Yep.
somebody, every week or every month.
Yep.
In a lot of these courses, even people might trade Reiki sessions. Let's say you become a Reiki
Absolutely.
healer, and then you have this community where now you can trade sessions with each other and get healing and provide healing. So there's a lot of outside the box ways that you can do things that are important for your health, even if you might not have the budget to be able to do them, as frequently or in the more traditional
Yeah.
way that, we might be talking about right now.
Well, I'd like to add that that was an important consideration for me in starting my business. And so once a month, I offer something called Community Reiki, and it's $11 and it's 1 hour. And it's for that very reason, Hunter. It's like, okay, guys, I've made it low cost. I've made it on Zoom. You don't have to leave your house. It's 11 bucks. That's what a coffee costs at Starbucks these days. And I stream the music through my computer and I channel the Reiki collectively and individually as I go through the Zoom. So, yeah, I tried to make it as easy as possible for people to receive on a monthly basis. You still get that clearing of old energy and that infusion of new energy. So, yeah, I hear you.
So there's
I
so
know
many
it.
options out there. So I think for people, it's like that's where be curious comes in. So let's say you
Correct.
see something, you're like, well, this doesn't work for me because it's in person, or this doesn't work for me because of the time, was da 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 da. Keep looking, keep searching. It does exist out there. And I agree with you with COVID. Now everything that you might have been like, oh, that doesn't work for me because I live in a small town, or that doesn't work for me because I live here. Everything's available everywhere. You can work with
Is.
anybody at any time, in person, online,
Mhm.
and I think that is really beautiful as well. And then I think for just my experience with Reiki, number one, just taking an hour for yourself, I feel like is such a healing thing, especially for type A driven people, especially women. Just taking an hour for yourself and closing your eyes, even if you don't sleep, just
Yes.
like just being, just existing, I think is so healing. And then number two, for me, I've always really loved the energy clearing aspects. I feel like I get clogged. I think people get clogged where it's like energy's moving through you and hopefully it just goes whoop, and just moving through you and it's there and you have access to it. But then like plumbing, like something else, like a cold, it can get caught. And then you're like, okay, I'm not able to speak, or I have this cough, or my stomach's bothering me, or I'm not sleeping very well. And it's like, let's clear that out. And then you've taken a rest, you've cleared out some energy, and now you can go on your merry way. And I think especially people that
Exactly.
have, as I said, psychosomatic like issues, so they have like a mild depression or anxiety or panic attacks that don't necessarily have a cause behind them. And the doctors are like, oh, you're fine. You're like, I am not fine. Something like
Right.
Reiki, acupuncture, chiropractic, meditation, yoga
Yep.
are beautiful because it's like, this is not going to hurt you at all. It only can help you. And again, at the very least, you've just taken an hour to take care of yourself, which is, I think, the most powerful thing, quite honestly.
Thank you, and I agree. I totally agree with you, Hunter. I think that's half the therapy. I think that is half the therapy that you have booked it, you have showed up,
Mhm.
and you have quieted your mind. And sometimes I used the word permission quite a bit earlier. Sometimes you need me to sit across from you and say, "You now have permission to be quiet for an hour." Some we need to hire people sometimes to do that, to say, "I am gonna hold this space for you, and you get to just unwind." And there is science behind Reiki. It's not huge research, but they have hooked people up to monitor brain waves, to monitor blood pressure, to monitor heart rate, and it all slows down.
Absolutely.
It takes your nervous system out of this fight or flight that we're in constantly. Everything is pinging at us, notifying us, or everything urgent, 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 right? Urgency culture. And you come in here and you talk in soft tones and we play beautiful music and there's crystals and the lights are dim and I give you a warm blanket and you rest and you come out of fight or flight and your nervous system goes into rest and digest. So yeah, Hunter, whether you are fully convinced that it's the energy work itself, I think half of the therapy is what you
Oh,
described.
absolutely. And I think I know it's a little bit cliche, but it's something that helped me when I was going through my burnout was the we are human beings, not human doings. And
Yes.
when you're a driven like fire sign or type A overachiever, like you're so used to doing. Like I do, that's
Yep.
all I do. And it's like when you could just be and just exist,
Yeah.
like that is very healing in and of itself, I believe.
It is, and it can be scary, right? Because it's an unlearning as much as it's a learning. And for a lot of people, it's like, wait, but who am I if I'm still? But what happens if my mind is quiet? Like I know I'm comfortable in this go, 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 go. I might be miserable, but I'm also very familiar with it. So that's why I think sometimes reaching out, people be like, well, I tried meditation at home. Sometimes you need that partner, you need that practitioner to give you the permission to hold the space and to guide you through it and tell you it's okay to just be for an
And I
hour.
think that goes back to the curiosity again. So let's say you tried meditation, you hated it. Great. Go try something else. Go try something else. Go try the thing until you find the thing that allows you to rest and recover. And like you said, it's even rest and digest, like for your nervous system, at the very least. Well, I would love to move into what I like to call our vanilla ice segment, which is basically you got a problem, you'll all solve it because I am a Gemini sun. I have a ton of Mercury placements. So I love like thinking on my feet. It's like my favorite thing to do. So, Kristen, do you have a business problem you would like to discuss today for us to solve?
I do. I do. And thank you so much for asking. So I started my business almost 5 years ago. And so I feel like for year one and two, it was building my client list and people were coming and it was like there was growth in the beginning. I would say for the last year and a half, I've been stagnant. So I have a really incredible client list. They're very responsive. I have a huge like open rate for my emails, but when I say huge, it's all relative, right? So there's about 400 very active email users that I have. And then on Instagram, I post and I would say each post gets like 30 or 40 views. I do stories. And so I'm just wondering, how do I break through that stagnation with the caveat that I want to continue growing this authentic, meaningful list. So I know I could buy email addresses and I can buy likes on Instagram and I know all the marketing, mumbo jumbo behind it, but I'm not doing it for the numbers. I'm doing it purely to have more people experience Reiki, come to my events, take my workshops, but I want them to be these engaging clients. So what is your suggestion for kind of breaking out of this plateau?
Of course. And so when you say 400 people, are you talking also about building your email list with active clients or more like building your client list specifically or both at the same time?
Yeah, I think both. I definitely have time. Okay, I hear what you're saying. I definitely have time in my schedule. I see 1 to 2 clients a day. I could see 3 to 4.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess to be more succinct, yes, how can I double my clients?
Perfect. So yeah, that's great. So to double your clients is going to be a slightly different than doubling like just a list or of people you can sell to. And
Right.
obviously, once you double the clients, then of course you can continue to sell to them. So I was just looking at your chart and then just thinking about what would be a good suggestion. So you have your 11th house, which is the house of community collaboration and groups, is in Libra, which is also the sign of like partnerships and collaboration as well. And then you've got Pluto in your 11th house, which is the, planet of like transformation and everything else. So that all tells me that really to increase your list size plus your clientele, you really want to lean into that networking collaboration. The power of many is greater than the power of few type of concept. So a specific example would be, how often do you ask your email list or your clients for referrals? So I would say whether that's at after every session, they get an email, whether you're asking for a testimonial, which I think is great just to continue collecting that. And then to say, if
Mhm.
you know somebody that would benefit from my services, please put their information here, or please let them know about me. And you can either offer like some kind of bonus or some kind of discount or something like that to people that are referring you. Because obviously, if they love you and they're engaged, they're going to want their other people know
Right.
about you. So that would be number one, is just kind of accessing the list that you have currently. Secondly, I see a lot of people forget that like their friends and family and acquaintances and even just like my kid's friend's mom at school type of thing, like those are great resources because they kind of know you. They already have a little bit of that like no trust factor, which is a little bit takes a little bit more time to get like on Instagram or Facebook or those kind of things. So
Yeah.
literally to reach out to those people who you're comfortable reaching out to, like go through your contact list in your phone, go through your emails, go through, I don't think you're not on Facebook, right? No,
No.
but go through Instagram, the people that follow you on Instagram, and DM them. Thank you so much for following me. Is there any questions you have? Like make it conversational, which I know you're very good at, but leading to the point of, hey, you've been following me. Is there any reason why you haven't booked yet? Or I've got
Mm,
my Reiki share coming up. It's $11. That's perfect for people on Instagram to
mm,
come to that
love
because
that.
it's so low risk. You could even give them like a 50% off discount. They're still paying you
Right.
$5 or whatever else. They got
Mhm.
some skin in the game, but they're coming to that. So those would be two places, or I guess three places if you count Instagram. So already going for your list, your clientele, your family and friends, and even like on LinkedIn, your second tier connections, your third tier connections. And that is going to be a really great way to, bring in more of those people. And then thirdly, I would say again, just with your 11th house placements with Libra, is are you part of any, minus our mastermind group, are you part of any kind of networking or collaboration type of group, maybe that is of similar people? And again, I would want to be like a little bit of a larger group of like-minded people where you're like, hi, I'm Kristen, I'm a Reiki master. And just from that, more people are going to know about you, more people are going to put you out there and everything else. So those would be like my three suggestions. Did any of that strike with you?
It does. What I'm hearing is, like, very targeted versus, like, mass market, like, just and I think that's probably where I need the adjustment because I tend to just, like, throw it out there and hope something sticks. Like, it never occurred to me to DM the people on Instagram, but you're right. They're liking every single post. I saw a woman at back to school night at the high school, and she's like, "I follow you on Instagram."
Absolutely.
So, you know,
Absolutely. If someone's
okay,
liking your posts, like you said, I got 30 to 40 likes. Go to them. Like, are they current clients? Great. Have they booked in a while? Reach out to them if they
yeah,
haven't. If they
yeah,
have, reach out to them for referrals. If they've liked your post but have never booked with you, you can either look at it as a information gathering, like, hey, I would love to know why you haven't booked with me yet. And in exchange for responding to me, I'm going to give you this 50% off coupon on my Reiki share, or whatever it might be. But those people, it's almost like now you've got colder leads, warmer leads, like warmest
yeah,
leads. So that way you're not just investing in your warmest leads or your coldest leads. If you're doing all three tiers, they're going to need to be handled a little bit differently. Then, yeah, so your clients, testimonials, and referrals, Instagram people, Reiki share, a community Reiki, 100%.
yeah.
And then the people in the middle, kind of the friends of the friends, I would say a combination of those two things are really the way to go with that.
Thank you so much. I will say on the referrals, Wix, my website's on Wix. They just introduced a referral program. So I work with one of their Wix advisors. He's been helping me for years. So he just set it up, but I need to let people know about it. So that, again, I'm offering $40 off for you for referring and $40 off for your friend who books.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So that just launched, and because it's through Wix, it's super easy. It's super easy for me to promote and super easy to redeem.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, an old marketing adage too, is that it costs way less money to keep a current client than it does to attract a new client. So when
You're
you
right.
have a engaged audience, it's more like how can I, utilize them and to help support me when I'm also supporting them and not like a predatory type of way. This is business.
Right, right,
We
right.
all have we all have ways to make money. We all do our thing, so it's really just like, hey, you like me, I like you. Do you know other people that I could help? And that is
Yeah.
not a bad thing to ask. And if it is, that probably is not your ideal client in the first place.
Right. Very
Yeah,
wise.
absolutely. So I would
Yes.
definitely go down that path and yeah, referrals and partnerships. Yes. So looking at people that are in complementary businesses. So like yoga studios, wellness studios, and chiropractic, acupuncture, a lot of stuff we talked about now. Even like seeing, can you put a business card or a flyer? Can you go to your local cafe and put a flyer up on the board? Like you never know. Just that little
Yeah.
50-cent printer, and I went and got a coffee and put it up there. You get one new client from that. It will absolutely be a huge ROI versus kind of,
So
yeah, throwing things out there.
I did that with my local gym. I was going and working out, and they had a community board, and I stuck it up there. A woman, I have goosebumps thinking about it because she found me. She took my Reiki 1 class because I also teach. She took my Reiki 2 class. She now comes every month. Like she is so involved and literally has said that it's changed her life.
Yeah. So
Like
what was
it's
the
changed.
ROI on that?
So
Like 5,000%? I mean, you joined a gym, so that probably very much paid for your gym membership. So now my gym membership is free. I put up this little flyer and now I found this person. And I think that's the thing with online business sometimes is that which I know you're also in person, but with online, we sometimes forget that like in-person things also work. We can,
still
yeah,
work.
we can
Yeah.
still work online, but attract our local community at the same time, so especially someone like you that does both, I would definitely say focus on in person as well as online. Don't just go too heavy on one end because you have, a very like golden market that you can access as well.
All right. Very, very
Any questions on that?
no, incredibly helpful.
Or
I feel like it's one of those examples where I've had some things in the back of my mind, but hearing you articulate them, I'm like, "Oh, those need to come to the front of my mind. Like I just need to do it." So I will, yeah, I will
it
get
doesn't have to be
moving.
big. I think sometimes you get stuck because we're like, oh, I've
Great.
got to do this and that and this. It's like, what's the easiest path for me to do this? Great. I'm gonna pick up my phone. I'm gonna DM 3 people every day. That'll take me
Right.
5 minutes.
Right.
I can do it while I'm watching TV, whatever, no big deal. And
Right.
so don't be like, I have to DM the 30 people today. No, DM the 30
Right.
people over the next like 3 or 4 weeks. And then at some point you get into a rhythm on it, it becomes really easy. So I think that's like take away the barriers to that being difficult.
So, Hunter, that's the advice I give all of my clients. Are you saying I need to take my own advice?
Yeah,
Is that what you're
100%.
telling me?
100% I am. Absolutely. And that's why it's important to work with people like you, people like me, whoever, it's like, again, having that reflected back to you. I tell people this all the time, but do I do it for myself? It's what's that saying? The cobbler's kids have no shoes type of things. It's like
Yes.
I'm in this energy healing all the time, but do I do that for myself? Okay, wait, let me make sure I'm practicing what I preach, right? At the same time.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, with that being said, I would love to kind of close out this episode by doing a pull from a card deck. So I love to like intuitively grab a card deck for my guests. Part of it is that I have a problem and I have way too many card decks. And so I'm like,
Fair.
oh, this will justify it. I'll use it for the podcast and that way it'll work. So I actually picked out 2 decks for you. So I wasn't quite sure which direction I wanted to go in. And you talked about creativity and everything earlier with marketing. So I actually think this is the one I want to go with, which is the energetics of color.
Ooh,
So it's very much just about color and what color simulates emotions and feelings and all that jazz. So I thought that was really perfect for a former marketing exec, creative like yourself.
can I also tell you the first healer that I ever went to specializes in color
Oh,
therapy.
wonderful.
It's amazing. It's from South Africa. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, what I got for you is periwinkle, which
Ooh.
says grace underneath of it. I'll look up
Wow.
that interpretation and see what we got for you and the listeners today. So, the path ahead may not be easy, but you can handle it. You have experienced many lifetimes that have prepared you for your current life. You are a brave and fearless leader. Aries Leo, I think.
Very.
Nothing can stand in your way when you are driven by love. So physically, you're a fearless leader. Emotionally, you are reconciling differences in favor of harmony. Mentally, you're dependable, trustworthy, and honest. Spiritual, love always wins. And your affirmation is, I am divine power embodied in human form. I think that's very apropos to what we were talking about today. Awesome. Well, I know the one thing I will put in the show notes we talked about is that you have a discount on your Reiki sessions if people use the code second chapter. And then you also have a 6-week program coming up that will put that information in the show notes as well for people to sign up for if they want to get a taste of Kristen's Reiki magic and energy healing. All right.
Thank you so much. And just a reminder that that promo code is for Zoom, so or in person. So if you're in the California Bay Area, I would love to see you in person. And if you are anywhere else in the world, we can connect over Zoom.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you, Hunter. This was amazing.
Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to shoot me a message on TikTok or connect with me on YouTube. Links can be found below in the show notes. Until next time, keep building your business with mastery and a sprinkling of magic.